In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how you can take somebody with a grown out long haircut and cut it into a medium length, beautiful layered haircut. So let's go. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Jamie Dana and I am here to support you on your hair journey. So in today's video, my model has not had a haircut in a little while. She's growing out some straight across bangs, and it's just been a little while since she's had a style to her haircut. So I'm gonna show you how you can take this long, grown out haircut and cut it into a beautiful, medium length layered cut and show you all the little tips and tricks that I have up my sleeve. So let's go. All right, so this is what we're starting with. As you can see, her hair is pretty long and grown out. There's no layers in the back here and just a little bit of face framing layers, which are some grown out bangs. So today we're gonna be doing a fun medium cut with some fun layers. And I'm gonna show you how to build in texture that fits the natural texture of your client's hair. So let's get started. Okay, so we are gonna start out her haircut by sectioning out her hair. So first what I like to do is I like to find where the client's hair naturally parts. And so I'll just kind of comb it straight back and then just kind of push it forward. And we can start to see that it naturally is parting right there. Then what we're gonna do is we're going to section the front of the head from the back of the head. All right, so how I determine where to section the front from the back is I'm going to look for the apex of the client's head. Now, this is typically the part of the head where it starts to round off. It can also be known as the highest point of the client's head. But if you have trouble finding that, an easy little trick you can do is you can place your comb right there, kind of where it starts to round out. And if you kind of find the balancing point, exactly where that comb lifts off and kind of balances, that's gonna be the apex of the head. So we've already sectioned it from the part. I'm gonna clean that up just a little bit. And now that I found the apex of her head, I'm going to literally take my comb and I'm going to bring it down to the back of her ear. So I'm gonna place my finger right here where I want it to match up. And I'm literally gonna take my comb and match it up with my finger. So I've placed it underneath here. Or matching it up, and then I can easily split the hair just like this. So we'll comb this back, and we've got this front section, and we could clip this up out of the way, but her hair is so long, we don't need to. We can just kind of twist it up out of the way. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. All right, so because we are gonna be taking off quite a bit of length from her, especially from this back section, one thing that I like to do before I start to section out the hair to cut it is I like to just see where the length is sitting so that I can kind of create my visual guideline before we go in to section it. So I'm looking here and I know she wants it to be about collarbone length, so I'm seeing how much I'm gonna wanna take off this back section, which is gonna be about this much in here. So now from there, I'm going to section the hair out and I'm gonna start at the part line where we got here at the top, and I'm gonna section down the center of her head. I'm gonna take that same trick where I place my finger down to the center and I'm gonna comb down like that. So I've got it in the middle of her neck right here. I'm gonna comb straight down and then easily we can part it. So now that we split it down the center, I am going to take right where her occipital bone is. So this is the bone of right where it kind of starts to curve inward. I'm gonna find that bone and I'm going to go pretty much straight across right here. And this is gonna be our first section. And we will clip this hair out of the way. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. Now, because it's this side, I can actually use my clip to section this one. You, of course, could use your comb as well, but sometimes it's easier just to grab it with the clip. So we will clip this up out of the way, and this is gonna be our first section that we're cutting from. All right, so now with her length, one thing to keep in mind, if we were gonna be cutting right about here, which we're gonna be a little bit shorter than that, because the chair kind of jets out right here, this might be something that I might have my client stand up for if we were gonna be cutting kind of right down here, because that back of the chair could get in the way. So just something to keep in mind when you are doing a haircut like this. But with her, we're gonna be going just a little bit above that. So what I like to do is I'm going to have her look down for me. And this is gonna help our hair to lay nicely. We are gonna comb just straight down, and I'm gonna see my visual guideline of where I want that hair to fall. So I'm gonna comb down, combing right here, go a little bit lower, and we're gonna go and cut. And I will work my way from the inside to the outside. Now you might have heard the term to never cut past your second knuckle. That is just a good rule of thumb, because sometimes you can cut your finger if you do that. If you cut too far in the corner here, I've cut myself, don't do it. Just try to not cut past your second knuckle. That also maintains that you have the same amount of tension throughout the entire section. So now that I've set my guide for the length, I like to stand right behind the client and check the length on both sides to make sure that my line is even. Now, once we've done that, I feel really good about it. We're going to take our next section. All right, so we're gonna take down our next section. And you can see I'm taking a pretty deep section here. Her hair is not crazy thick, so if it were, I would take less of a section, but hers is totally fine to take this thick of a section. And I'm just using my clips right here to section it out. Now for this section, I actually decided to switch the cape so you could see it a little bit easier here, because I really want you to see that guideline coming through. So as you can see, here is our length guide, and you can really see that just popping through. If I took the section and I wasn't able to see my guideline length right there, then that shows you that you need to take a thinner section of hair. So that's just something to keep in mind. If you can't see the guideline, split it in half and you should be able to find that guideline. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna have her do the same thing. Go ahead and tilt her head down, right? We're gonna comb through here, come through the middle. I see my guideline right there. And we're gonna cut just straight across. All right, now we'll take this final section down to establish the rest of our length. Okay, so now I had her look straight in the mirror, and I am going to check the length and make sure that it's even on both sides, and it is. This is really key. Before we move on to the front of the head, we wanna make sure that this is even, and if it's just a little bit off, this is now our time to go back and fix it and make that little adjustment, because as we continue to the front of the head, if it's long, it's going to affect how it's laying in the front as well. So now we're gonna continue to the side of the head. Okay, so now we have come to the side of the head. Now, sometimes you might see cutting videos where they take this section and they over direct it back to the back and they cut it that way. I personally am not a huge fan of that because this is going to make this front section much longer in the front because we over directed it to the back. If you just think of it this way, when I pull it forward, it's gonna be much longer. So I personally, for this cut, I'm gonna direct it straight down. So I'm gonna marry it with the back section. And one thing to keep in mind when we are doing this is not only does this client have a shoulder, as all do, right? So because of this length here, we are combing it down past the shoulder. However, if we were cutting it a little bit shorter and we didn't have that shoulder in the way, we have an ear that we would need to watch out for. So keep that in mind with her because we're cutting it away from the body and hitting the shoulder. We're not having that ear protrude out and affect that at all. So we're going to just comb it straight down and I am going to connect it. There's my guideline right there. And I'm going to connect it just straight all the way through to the front. And here we go, all the way through right there. And we'll let that length sit there. We're gonna do the same thing on the other side and then we're gonna cross check. Okay, so now that we've cut the sides, I like to cross check it. So I will just split the hair down the middle and I will bring the hair forward to make sure that we have the same amount of length on each side. So I'll take it right here and I will cross check it. It's good to me here. I'll also take it from the middle of the head as well to check it to make sure that that length is the same. And that looks good. And also from the back and just kind of check to make sure that we're laying evenly. Now, if for some reason it was a little longer on one side or the other, this is now your chance to go back and fix it and double check before you continue to move on because nothing's worse than when you dry the hair and it's a little bit longer on one side. It's much harder to fix when it's dry than it is to fix when it's wet. Perfect, so it looks pretty good. Okay, so now that we've established the length, we're gonna go in and add our layers. Now at this point, she pretty much doesn't have any layers in her entire haircut, except for right around the face, which we're gonna do at the end. So I'm going to take our guideline from the center of where her part line is, and I'm gonna do about an inch wide section. I'm gonna take this section going off of her part line. So we're going to take the guideline right off of her part line. So about half an inch from each side. This is about an inch wide. And we're going to hold this up and now I'm going to be establishing where I want my layers to fall. Now, one thing that I like to do with layers, especially because she literally has no layers in here, there's no guideline from any previous haircuts, I like to measure with my fingers about where I think I want it to lay, and then I'm actually gonna drop it down to where that actually would lay. So I kind of have this guide with my fingers and I see, okay, that's kind of where it would lay, that's what I was thinking, but I just wanna double check because sometimes we might cut it too short or leave too much length, and then that's not gonna get the layers that we want. So I'm going to take this here. Now you can see her face framing pieces are dropping out, no big deal. We will, again, tackle those in the end. I'm gonna check right here, check my length, see if that's where I want it to sit, which is perfect, right about there. So we're gonna go in and we're gonna set our guideline. So I'm just doing a straight across guideline right there. Straight 90 degrees from the head and straight. I'm not doing any short to long or anything like that. I'm gonna keep it right there because we wanna have layers on the sides and in the back. So then we'll drop our guideline and this is gonna be the guide for the rest of the haircut. So now that I let my guideline drop down, I'm going to part her hair back on her part again. And I'm going to start here in this back center section. So I'm gonna take about an inch from the back. And we wanna make sure that we're getting that guideline in there. So we're gonna comb it directly straight up, making sure that all this hair is here. And if it isn't, that's probably length that's dropping out. So this length is dropping out, that's our perimeter. So I'm gonna comb it straight up 90 degrees from the head. And as you can see, here is our guideline right there. And this is length. So you can see guideline, length, and this is gonna be our layer. we're gonna comb it straight up. And I am not gonna cut it straight across. We're not gonna do straight across. We're actually gonna do short to long. So the guideline's gonna be the shortest part. And I'm gonna cut short to long. And we're gonna cut right in here, short to long. Connect it right in there, short to long. Now I'm gonna go back down through my section and make sure that I got all of that length in there, because sometimes it falls out. And because we're cutting short to long, we wanna make sure that we got it all in there. So I'm gonna grab this up here. Some of it's fallen out. Check right here and just connect it in. So now we have our layers right here. And the reason why I'm cutting short to long in the guideline in the layers is because I don't want to take out so much weight from here. I do want to keep a little bit of that weight in there. If we were to go straight across, we would be cutting out quite a bit of weight. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take another section, and this is going to be a pivoting section. So first was just straight this way. Now we're going to do straight this way, and we're going to hold it again 90 degrees up from the head right here. Here we go. I can see my guide from the previous section, short to long. A couple little stragglers. I'm gonna grab the whole section, make sure I got it all in there from my length, pull it up. And you can see there's just that little bit of corner that I didn't grab. Okay, so once I finish that, what I am gonna do one more cut. So I am gonna hold this section out. Now it's 90 degrees from the bottom of the head. And I see that there's a little tiny bit of weight right here. So I am gonna just take that out just ever so slightly. I'm gonna go back and do that on the previous section because I didn't do that there. 90 degrees from the head. And just gonna connect this through right here with a little point cutting. Okay, so I'm gonna continue moving forward through to her haircut. And now this time we had done our straight behind section, we did a pivoting section, and now we're going to do our section this way. So we're gonna keep moving forward until we probably hit this section right here with her face framing. So this is a section that's pretty much right behind the ears. We've already cut all of this. Here's our next section. And we're gonna go straight up from the head, 90 degrees, and we're still cutting short to long. So you can see, there's my guideline. You can kind of see it underneath here. You can see that right there. So all I'm doing is connecting that line from the previous section. Okay, so now we've gotten all the way to her front section that had that face framing layer in there. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna blend this in. We're gonna let all of that bang drop out, but there still is a little bit of this section that needs to be layered. So we're going again, directly 90 degrees above. And look, there's just a couple little straggler hairs that were in there that needed to be cut. And now we're going to pull it out and check to see if there's anything in this length that we need to cut. Pull it all the way out. I'm just gonna take off this corner right there, just a little bit, strengthen up that line. We'll let it go, and then we're gonna blend in her face framing a little bit after this. So now that we've finished this entire side of the head, we're gonna do the exact same thing on the other side. Okay, so now we finished up all the layers. And one thing that I like to do is I like to go back and cross-check my haircuts. So I'm going to take a section now, because we cut it this way, I'm going to take a cross section across her part line. So we're gonna start here in this back section and are straight across. And because I know we cut short to long, we should be able to see a kind of short to long here. So go in and just double check it. I like to sometimes texturize right there as well. Now she has these face framing pieces, so we're not going to capture too much from the front. So I'll just go back in and kind of double check that. Some of that face framing is still in there. Okay, so now that we've finished up all of the rest of the layers, we're going to blend in those face framing pieces. And again, she had a straight across bang that she's growing out. So this is gonna be a little bit more strong than if it was just a regular face frame. So I'm gonna come around to the side here and show you guys what we're doing. So to blend this in, I am going to take a section pretty much like in front of her ear. It would be the section that would be in front of her ear. And I am just going to comb it forward. And because she has these bangs that she's grown out, I'm not gonna touch any of the length there. I'm just literally going to slide cut down right here ever so slightly, just kind of blending this in, because right now it was a little disconnected. So you can see that like this was length that was still in there. Check one more time. And I don't want to cut too much off because it'll open up her face too much, but I do want to make sure that this is blended and actually like layered right here. So just kind of blending that through. And I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side. So you can even see it a little bit more on this side. This is where her bang was sitting, and it's just kind of like not very much right there. So again, we're just gonna blend that in. I'm not touching the length of her bangs. I'm kind of letting that fall out and then just slide cutting down so that it blends that in. We're taking off all of that, like just kind of dead weight length that's in there. Check it one more time. A little bit more here. Now, one thing you want to be cautious of, especially with somebody who's growing out their bangs, we don't want to open up the face too much, which again is kind of why I take that section just from the ear forward. And we do want to make sure that there still is length in this section. If we cut all of this out, it's going to start to feel like a mullet because all it is layered up here in the front, and then the length would be back here in the back. So we do want to make sure that we're maintaining this weight. Even though it's not much, we have to maintain that in the front or else it'll just open it up too much. All right, so we finished up the wet section of the haircut. So now we're gonna blow dry it, and I'll probably do a little bit of cutting and customization once it dries and we can just see where things are sitting. Okay, so once I have finished the blow dry with my client, I always like to check in with them, see how they're feeling about it. Another thing that I'm doing when I'm blow drying the hair is I'm seeing where the weight is laying. This is a great way to cross-check your haircuts while you're blow drying. If you're blow drying a section and you see that there's, a little bit more length or a little bit more weight in an area, or maybe it's a little heavier on the ends, that's an area that you can go back and fine tune in the dry cutting section. So that's something, a little trick that I like to, as I'm blow drying, just kind of check things through. But then I like to check in with my client, see how they're feeling, and I kind of guide them through what I'm going to do next. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna go through, there was a little bit of heaviness just in some of those layers that I want to texturize, but overall it's sitting really nicely and I feel pretty good about it. So let's get into that customization next. So for me, when I go through to texturize the hair, first off, I like to see how it's laying and where I might want a little bit more weight taken out. I can just kind of see it's sitting a little heavy in here, just in those layers. Not too much, but just so slight. So I like to go back through the haircut the same way that I cut it before. So I'm gonna start in this back section and I'm gonna hold the hair up, and I'm kind of just cross-checking and going back through the haircut in the same steps. So I'm seeing right here that we have quite a bit of weight sitting in right there. You can kind of see it's a little bit thicker, and you could take your thinning shears and go in, but I'm just gonna go in with my regular shears and do some deep point cutting just to kind of texturize right through here. So just kind of do some deep point cutting here into it and let that fall. And then I'm gonna hold the hair out from this way, 90 degrees from the head, exactly the same way that we cut it before. This allows me to kind of check, see if there's any sections that maybe I could take more weight out from and just kind of texturize through there. This little bit of customization is what's really gonna make those layers sit really nicely for your clients and not feel choppy. If you've ever had a client complain just like, oh, it felt a little choppy, or this one area didn't lay right, it's probably because you didn't go back through and do just this little bit of texturizing. So that is just a little key that I like to take the time to go back in, check the weight, and just kind of texturize through it. It always just lays nicer for the clients, and then they're not gonna have like a chunky section. So I'm gonna continue to do this through the entire haircut, and then when we get to the face frame, I'm gonna show you what I'm gonna do there. Okay, so as I was going back through her haircut to do the customization, I noticed that her face framing pieces, or basically her grown out bangs, were a little disconnected through the layers. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take this section. Now, keep in mind that we don't wanna take out that much weight here because it, again, is gonna feel really disconnected. She's gonna feel like she's got a really chunky piece sitting right here on the top, and then the rest of her length, almost like a mushroom cut. You definitely don't want that. So I'm going to just try to connect it through without taking out too much of that weight. So I'm gonna hold it straight up, and you can kind of see that her face framing is sitting a little bit lower. It's kind of like right in there, and there's like a little disconnection about an inch. It might be hard to see on camera, but what I like to do here is I'm just gonna texturize through that. So I'm not gonna match it that length because that's going to take out too much weight and it's going to shorten the layers too much on this side, but I'm going to kind of texturize through just to kind of connect it through a little bit. Obviously the bangs are something that were pre-existing in the haircut, so it's not something I put in there, but even though it's something that's pre-existing, we want it to blend with the rest of the haircut, and we don't want her to feel like, oh, there's a piece that's laying a little funky on this side. So just kind of keep in mind that sometimes when you're working with pre-existing things, you got to still blend them into the haircut, and that's an easy way to do that just through the deep texturizing without it feeling like disconnected. Okay, so the last thing that I'm gonna do is I am gonna texturize through her bangs just a little bit. I'm not taking off length, I'm more so taking out the weight so that they lay just a little bit nicer and grow out softer. So all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hold them up directly like this, and I'm gonna hold them up this way to the head, not this way. We're holding them up to the part line, and I'm going to just do some really deep point cutting right here, just like 2 little cuts. It's gonna just soften them ever so slightly without taking out that length. All right, and here is the final result. As you can see, it looks so beautiful. I love how the layers just give her so much more movement and bounciness, and she has so much more volume that's going to fit so well with her natural texture. As you can see, the side layers were blended in so nicely to that face framing grown out bang, and it just looks so gorgeous. This is gonna be something that grows out so nicely and so beautifully on her. Thank you guys so much for watching my video today. I hope that you learned something new. And if you did, go ahead and let me know in the comments what that thing was that you learned. As always, thank you so much for being here and watching through to the end. It literally means the world to me that you stick around till the end. And because you did that, I want to give you a free little digital gift from me to you. I wrote your next 10 Instagram captions for you, and you can download them absolutely for free. There's a little link here in the description to get 10 free pre-written Instagram captions so that you don't have to think about your next 10 posts. As always, thank you so much for being here, and I cannot wait to see you next time.